Hello, hello everyone. I'm Suzanne.
And I'm Evan.
And we are here from the Crafty Cask today because we have been doing some virtual tasting experiences that we are quite excited about. And as we've been doing them, we have also been doing some webinars for some cider associations and things of that nature to teach craft makers how to really do great virtual meetings, happy hours, tasting experiences yourself. So let us tell you a little bit first about our virtual experiences and how they differ from what maybe you can do yourself. And then we're going to jump in and just spend a little bit of time doing technology tips and tricks, showing you our home setup and kind of giving you some tips about how to set up your studio at home so that it's easy but also effective and all sorts of good stuff so that when you host your own virtual happy hour or virtual tasting experience, it is amazing. So Evan and I have been doing virtual tasting experiences for the Crafty Cask, and what's a little different about if you do them yourself, which is what we're going to talk about primarily today, what makes them a little different is we host them, so it takes all of the stuff we're going to talk about today off your plate.
All that hard work.
But it also gives you access to a broader audience. And so whenever we do these virtual tasting events, we promote them to our audience on social media, our newsletter. We have over 15,000 people on social media. And then also we always feature at least 2 to 3 craft makers. And the reason we do that is so that you all get access to each other's audiences as well, because rising tides lifts all boats. And so if we can get you access to more people to find out about your brand, learn about your brand, that means your audience base is growing, which we all really need right now. And you're getting access to more people to hopefully drive online sales. And so whenever we do these events, we try to schedule them at least 2 weeks out so that we can encourage people to pre-order the exact things that we will be sipping on, which today is cider.
Cider.
Got to take a sip after you cheers, right? So we promote them in advance, and we try to encourage people to pre-order from craft makers, to get the same things we'll be sipping on. And then also during the events themselves, we're sharing links to order and any discounts or shipping promotions or anything you guys have going on to really encourage as many people as possible to order product from you so that you guys are getting support during this crazy time of kind of crisis that we're all going through, but hopefully into the future and beyond. So we're hoping one of the good things that comes out of all this is people enjoy these virtual tasting experiences that let them kind of travel and explore and learn about new things from the comfort of their own home, and that these will drive additional incremental sales for all of you, get you new audience members, and all of that good stuff. So that's what we've been working on. If you want to get featured in any of our virtual tasting experiences, so you can just go to that link and learn more about it and contact us and fill out a form and see if we can get you featured in an upcoming virtual tasting experience. But enough about us. Although I guess we should introduce ourselves briefly before but then we're going to kind of tip over to you. So I'll introduce myself first since I'm already talking. Evan's like, you're always talking. So I'm Suzanne. I'm the founder of the Crafty Cask. And the Crafty Cask is all about celebrating and supporting craft alcohol makers. So cider, beer, wine, mead, spirits, all of this good stuff. We work with all sorts of makers that make all of that kind of stuff. And really, we do this a couple of different ways. So we have an online craft alcohol marketing bootcamp that's designed to teach craft alcohol makers all about the marketing basics and kind of what you can do to supercharge everything you put out in the world and make your marketing stronger and better and drive better results. And then we also do in-person events when we're allowed to do those. So I do quite a few Meet the Maker events to bring consumer enthusiasts together with craft makers. And then we create a ton of consumer content to help educate consumers, like we're doing with these virtual tasting events, and get them to get over some of those sneaky myths that they still have, maybe from college, like gin tastes like Christmas trees, or cider is girly and sweet.
All Chardonnays are butter bombs.
All Chardonnays are butter bombs, right? So we're trying to educate people so that they expand their drinking palates and that they choose craft and they understand the importance of that. So that's me, and that's the Crafty Cask.
And I'm Evan. I've spent the last decade or so doing kind of bespoke, private, custom wine tours tailored to the guests' particular palates and interests. I'm a certified sommelier and recently a certified cider professional, hopefully a certified pommelier soon. And so I'm really excited to be joining with Suzanne to kind of lend my knowledge and expertise about the tasting process and the sensory evaluation of these products that we're going to be featuring in the virtual tastings that we do. So yeah, I guess we can jump right in and start to talk a little bit about
hosting these yourself.
Yeah.
Right. It's like giving you all the tools and the tricks and the sneaky little things that you might not figure out until you messed it up the first time kind of thing like we have. So sharing that learning curve a little bit with all of you so that you're successful right from the start. And whether it's a virtual happy hour or a virtual tasting experience, whatever it may be, that you know what you're doing, you feel confident and comfortable, and you can just focus on the content.
The fun stuff.
Yeah.
So start off with some technology points. Zoom is our preferred tool at the moment. The free plan that they offer caps at 40 minutes. So anything that goes over that, the meeting just ends. So you might want to look into one of the paid, I think they're $15 a month.
Yeah, I think the lowest paid plan is $15 a month, and that gets you lots of bells and whistles and all the stuff you need. And then I think those meetings are actually unlimited. You can do 24-hour meetings, which is crazy. So I would love to see it. If any of you are doing 24-hour happy hours, please let us know.
But yeah, they have some nice features, polling of the guests and the attendees, getting to ask them at the beginning of an experience, what are your thoughts about cider? And then again at the end, do you feel differently now? Are you more inclined to order it when you're out at the bar, when you can go out to the bar again?
Yeah.
Things like that. Whatever tool you decide to use, though, be it Zoom or any of the other options, make sure you go through all the settings. I would suggest in pretty close detail and get them right. Understand what they're asking, understand the differences, try a few meetings out, and see what that particular feature does and test it before you're live.
A good example is our first tasting experience we did. We only had it recording the speaker view, which meant all you got to see was pretty much us, a little bit of other people when they were speaking on camera, but we really were bummed that we weren't recording the gallery view, because the gallery view lets you see all the different people, and that can be some great content to share on social media later, get people excited about your next event, things like that. So that's kind of one example of the settings and the details that you kind of want to pay attention to so you get it all right.
Yeah, audience screen share is another one. It's necessary oftentimes for the host, but do you want the people that are viewing to be able to share their screen? Can pose some problems, especially if there are people that are showing up that aren't registered and they're just kind of out there trolling, which unfortunately is a thing that people have been dealing with. So yeah, recording in speaker view and in gallery view is something that's helpful, so you can collect media that can be used to promote your tasting experiences. We suggest joining from 2 different devices, and we'll show you why here in just a little bit. When you do that, make sure you disconnect the audio for one of them. Otherwise, you get terrible reverb, and muting is not sufficient. You really have to disconnect the audio entirely. The feedback can be heard by everyone, and it's just
not fun.
Yeah. In the gallery view, which is what we kind of recommend encouraging your guests and your attendees to use, you get to see all the different people that are in attendance. And that makes it a little bit more immersive, because instead of just seeing whoever's speaking, getting to see what other people are doing and sipping on gives a sense of connectivity. You're hanging out with people instead of just listening to someone as if it's a lecture.
It's funny, whenever we mention this, you can see people's faces actually change, because they'll be in speaker view and they'll just be watching us or whoever's talking at the moment. And then we'll remind people, like, make sure you're in gallery view. And all of a sudden you see people's faces like, whoa, and they're waving at each other and they see a friend. And it just really makes it more connecting and more like a party.
Very much so.
So for technology, that's kind of our big technology pieces. Some of these other pieces will touch on technology as well. But next we want to talk a little bit about logistics. So we were going to show you our setup and kind of talk you through why we set things up the way we set things up. I do want to say up front that we're going to be showing you some things that are a little bit of an added investment. So webcams, lighting, things like that. You don't have to get any of that stuff. You absolutely can use the camera that's built into your device, the lighting that you have naturally, things of that nature. And that's all. Can we actually throw up the link to, you already did that one. Yeah. So we're going to be, sorry. That's one of the reasons, we'll talk about that in a minute, why it's great to have 2 people doing this. But so you don't have to have any of that fancier equipment, even though some of it is pretty affordable. We have a list that we've created on Amazon that has a few of the items that we're going to be showing here today. So we'll throw that in the chat as well so that you can see exactly where to go kind of find some of this stuff and the ones that we recommend. But you can do it without it. So I just want to say that up front because I know, especially right now, money is tight. None of us are looking for additional investments. But I want to set you up to do it very well and have a really engaging, great experience if you want to invest in that. So for logistics, if possible, have two co-hosts. Even if you're not sitting next to each other like Evan and I are, even if you're in different locations, it's really helpful to divide and conquer so that while one of us is talking, the other one is keeping an eye on the chat, raised hands, which we'll talk about, engaging digitally, things of that nature. One thing to keep in mind is that when you start the meeting, you do have to invite the other person to be a co-host. You can't set that up in advance. So you have to make sure that they have controls and things of that nature. I did forget that the first time. Evan was kicking me under the table being like, I can't do the thing you want me to do because I'm not a co-host. So you do have to just do that quickly and make that person the co-host over in the participants area, which we will show as well. Well, it's tempting. I want to talk about for a second. It's tempting sometimes to have your camera really far away. And so we've seen quite a few wine tastings and things of that nature where the camera is really far back so that you capture that whole beautiful tasting room and the view and all of that good stuff. I know that's tempting. It's honestly pretty disengaging to have your hosts and the people who are talking really, really far away, even if you can hear them well. So what we do actually is do you want to show kind of our camera setup here?
Yeah, so you can see here we've got webcam at the top of this monitor here. So it's a little bit further away, which gives us the space to still have our laptops up and being able to check on the chat and put the links there and do some screen sharing and things of that nature without it feeling like our hands are right in front of the camera.
Yeah, and it's nice too, especially if you want to do a tasting, because they let you get enough distance from the camera that you can have your glasses there, they can see what you're doing. And then if I go type to chat, you're not seeing my hands on the computer, you're not seeing the computer itself, things of that nature. So we really like having a webcam a little further away. The webcam is actually connected to our computers that are down here. We just have it up on a big screen. And normally up on the big screen, what we do is we have the second device connected as a participant, and we put the whole view up there. And the nice thing about that is, first, it pulls your eyes to all the people because it's a big screen, right? And so it keeps you from doing this because nothing's more engaging than you talking and kind of doing this, right? Like that's not engaging. And so it forces you to keep seeing all those beautiful faces that showed up to support you right there big in front of you. And then the camera's right on top of it. So it's really easy to be looking directly at the camera and also feel like you're looking at everyone else and keeping an eye on them. So that's why we really love this setup of if you can get a webcam that has a little bit of a cord from your computer, push it back a little bit. And so that's kind of one of our big tips there. Background. So it's nice to we have a little bit more stuff up here than we normally do. We typically like to have a pretty clean background so it's not distracting and cluttered feeling and people aren't kind of trying to figure out what's going on behind you. So normally what we do is we completely clear this off and we just have the bottles of the makers that are going to be featured that night. And we might have some extra bottles of theirs that we're not featuring, talking about as in depth, but it's nice to have a little bit of their kind of products up behind us. We're doing a little double camera action right here. And so that's really nice to have a clean background, but have some featured things that are relevant and kind of relevant to what you're doing. And so then I want to talk a little bit about lighting. So with lighting is tricky, especially with alcohol, because as you can see right here, the screen is kind of glowing off of my glass a little bit, which is not ideal, but it's pretty hard to get it so that there's no shadow at all. So don't worry too much about it, but having good lighting so you're well lit, you look bright, you look energetic, you look exciting is so important. And so what we have here, because we don't have great lighting in our apartment, to be honest, so up above I have a ring light. And the nice thing about the ring light is it kind of does different warm tones, cool tones, different brightness levels, things of that nature. And it's a big light. And so, yeah, he's playing with the lights a little bit so you can see how different we can make it. And so I feel like I'm in a disco or a rave or something. And so That's really helpful because the bigger lights light up your whole space. So if you have a bigger space or a bigger room, those are great. There's also, though, since that's a little expensive, we have the smaller light as well. And so this is really cool, and it's also a ring light. And what you can do is there's a phone attachment right to it, and so you can put your phone right in it, get the camera shooting right through the hole in that ring light there, and then it creates a nice soft kind of glow around you. And that also, you can adjust the warmth, the coolness, the brightness level, things of that nature. So that's our lighting tips. And again, all of these things, the webcam, the lighting, all of those things are on our Amazon list. So you can kind of head right over there and see the ones that we suggest. But yeah, so that's kind of the logistics of like setup. I'm trying to think of what else, if there were any other little.
We chose to have
our mouses.
Our mouses.
We do like to have yeah. And that's nice because you're not, I don't know about you, but when you're on your computer and you're kind of having to like delicately move things around, you have to look at your computer, right? Whereas I feel like with my mouse, I can very quickly and easily kind of do that and still be looking at the camera. So make yourself comfortable, I guess, is part of the key. It's like you want to feel comfortable. You don't want to feel like you're so cluttered and you're so in and that your face is like so close to the camera that it's like up your nose. And because you want people to see what you're drinking and you want to have a little space. So those are our setup tips. Oh, I guess one thing that you may have noticed is we have a table on top of the table for our setup. And honestly, the reason we do that is because we just like how a wood table looks rather than like our little crappy throw-up table that we had for parties and stuff like that. So that's one reason, is we really just wanted to have a nice surface.
And again, to get the camera far enough away.
Yes, and that's the other reason. So we can push that monitor back and the webcam back and have a little distance behind us to get some space, especially since there's two of us. But we do really strongly suggest two co-hosts. It's really nice to have one of us throwing links in the chat, keeping an eye on people as they're talking to us, while the other one can make sure we're engaging and kind of trade off a little bit so you get a break. And
keeping the flow as well, being able to monitor the chat while your partner is speaking, and then being able to quickly say, hey, so-and-so had a question. Let's go over to them and ask them to repeat the question. Because while some people might type in their question in the chat or make their comment in the chat, getting them to actually speak their comment or speak their question and everybody can see camera, them is going to make them feel like they're more of a part of this experience and make other people feel comfortable also being a part of it, so that you don't fall into the trap of just being the only people talking the whole time. Yeah, because that is an easy trap to fall into. And I think sometimes we fall into that trap because we feel like no one's talking, so we have to fill the space. But a lot of times no one's talking because they feel like they're not allowed to talk, or they don't know how to get in there and talk. Because we do recommend you start everyone on mute when they start. Right. Just because background noise. It's really about the background noise. But you want them to raise their hand like they have a question, and then you want them to unmute and engage and talk with you. So encouraging that the best you can. And honestly, like, you can tell people straight up that if they have something that they'd like to say, unmute yourself and just say it. If you're working with a small enough size group and it's a respectful audience, and then just encourage them to go ahead and mute themselves when they're done talking, so that when their dog starts barking, it doesn't mess up the experience for everybody else. Totally. We're getting ahead of ourselves a little bit with the during the event kind of tips and tricks, of course. But that's okay. Do you want me to do the pre-event and you can do during the event? Sure. Yeah. So pre-event prep, promote. I cannot say this enough. You're not just doing these virtual tastings or happy hours out of the goodness of your heart. Of course, you want to connect with your consumers. You want to connect with each other. That's important. But you need this to be valuable to your business as well. And that is why we're doing this little webinar for you right now, because we want this to be valuable for you. So make sure you promote early enough in advance, especially if you want people to pre-order so they can be drinking along with you. Give them enough lead time. They can think about if they want to order, decide if they want to order, then order, and still get that product on time. So I'd say at least 2 weeks in advance, and then promote it to your newsletter, on social media, on your personal social media. And again, this is one of the benefits of joining in on our virtual tasting experiences, is that you're not on the hook to be the only one promoting. You'll be promoting, we'd be promoting, the other makers are promoting to their audience as well. So there doesn't have to be that like nervousness about like, oh no, is anyone going to come? There's more of us doing that. But when you promote,
We do actually suggest requiring registration for your events. It is a little bit more of a hurdle for people to attend. They can't just at the last minute, and well, they can at the last minute do it, but it is one more step for them to register. But let me tell you 3 reasons why it's a really good idea to require registration. First, you'll know the attendee count in advance so you can adjust promotions or reschedule as needed. You don't want to show up for just 2 people, right? I mean, you do, but we all have things to do. We're all scrambling to get our businesses, working in this new world that we live in. So you can either be like, oh crap, I need to promote more, or reschedule. The second reason is when you ask people to register, you get the emails of all attendees. And I don't know about you, but growing my email list is constantly something that I'm working on and trying to do. So all you do is just in the meeting registration in Zoom, there's a space to put in your own custom note. And you can put a note in there that basically just says, by registering for this meeting, you're opting into our mailing list so that we can tell you about future fun events as well. You can unsubscribe at any time. Perfect, right? So that's a great reason to register as well. And then the last reason is one that Evan kind of touched on a little bit before, but posting a public Zoom link out there in the broad ether of the world can be a little risky. As there's been some reports of people trolling and joining Zooms at the last minute and then grabbing screen share control if you allow that, and honestly putting up unsavory things that you don't necessarily want your audience to see, or even maybe self-promoting, right? Like putting something up there about a competing brand or something like that. So it's a little risky. You can turn screen sharing off, of course, and not let other people do it. But most trolls aren't going to take that time and energy to register. So it just cuts down on that a little bit as well. The next thing is preparation is key. So just like I was saying, promote, because this is valuable for your business. We want this to be valuable for your business. So you have to prepare for it. Don't just show up without a plan and expect it to go smoothly. Now, if you're just hosting a happy hour and you just want your audience to open whatever bottle of yours they have on hand and cheers and just kind of connect and hang out, it's a little less critical. I'd still suggest you think a little bit about some fun questions to ask, some things to drive engagement. But you really want to prepare in advance so that you're set up for success and so that you feel comfortable and confident and you know what you're doing, right? So the things that I would suggest you do is create a rough outline of the event and think realistically about how much time each one's going to take so that you don't go way over what you promised everyone this would be. Also think about visuals. So a lot of people don't think about this and they're just about, face on camera. What are we going to say? What are we going to do? But especially in this time where we are all stuck in our houses and even far into the future when we can go out of our houses, but we don't get to travel as much as we'd like to. Visuals really bring things to life in a more holistic way and help guests feel like they're there and they're getting an experience. So we often do things like we have our makers share with us pictures of their orchards or their vineyards, their teams, right? So fun pictures of your team. You can even overlay and show a video of the production process and kind of put that on mute, but show it while it's going on. And you don't have to talk to the visuals. So don't think of the visuals as a PowerPoint presentation. Don't think of it being as okay, now this photo showing this, that photo showing that, because we've all sat through vacation slideshows of our friends and after 10 minutes, we're okay, enough. So it really is great to bring it to life for people and really help them feel like they're there, essentially. So make sure to think about that in advance and gather them and really kind of practice. And I'll talk about practicing in a moment. And then a document. So I always create a document with all the links I want to share during that. So again, thinking ahead about what links would be helpful to share to them so that they can join my mailing list, they can buy product, they can register for a future event in the future. So think about all those links that you want people to have and just create a document to keep on your screen so you can very easily copy and paste them into the chat and you're not wasting your time looking for the link and typing in to find it and things of that nature. And then if you have a paid account, also think about using the added features like polling, like Evan mentioned earlier. That can really be a great way to engage people. Last couple of things for the pre-event prep is do a trial run your first time. You don't have to run through the whole content necessarily, but get on the technology. And this is, again, where it's helpful to have 2 different devices, even if you're hosting by yourself or you're home alone. It's really helpful to join on one device as the host and then join on another device as the participant. And this helps you get familiar with how they're seeing, what they're seeing, when you do XYZ, what shows up for them. The one thing I would especially say is practice screen sharing. I personally struggle with this, especially if the documents are in certain formats. So whatever you plan on sharing on that event, every time I have an event, I do this. Whatever documents I plan on screen sharing, I go into Zoom and I do a test meeting and I make sure the documents are open. I know where to find them. They're starting on the right page I want them to start on and all that stuff. So you're not spending a lot of time with people looking at your screen, kind of navigating and finding the thing you want to find.
Yeah, scrolling and navigating through a PDF might be different than a camera roll of pictures that you want to share.
And if you do want to share pictures, a lot of times an easy way is to just create a folder with all the pictures you want to create so they're in one spot, and then that opens kind of the mono-loop a little bit depending on what device you're on. And then the last event kind of planning thing is before starting, I highly suggest you restart your computer to make sure everything is. Like, just clear out the system. And especially if you're like me, who has 4 different Chrome windows open with 18 different tabs on each one, and like, it just gets crazy. Restart your computer so everything is like updated and fresh, and then also only open the things that you need on that virtual meeting. Because otherwise it just clutters the system and it slows your computer down too. And so then you can have buffering issues and all that kind of good stuff.
Going into the event itself.
During the event.
Yeah. Gives the people a little time to join. Sometimes they have trouble finding the link or, typing in the password or making sure that their security settings are properly set so that the computer can access the video and the microphone and all that important stuff. Can take a little bit of time. So as they're, filtering in, have some questions, something to talk about, ask them what they're drinking, maybe start a poll, maybe unmute everybody and just let everybody chit-chat for a little while as people arrive. And then when it's time to start the event, mute everybody again and give a little overview of the time that you're going to be spending together and what you're going to talk about, and give people an idea of roughly how long you're going to be talking about the different things you're going to be talking about, so that they don't get to a point in the meeting where they're like, oh man, I have to start making dinner in about 20 minutes. Is this going to last for another 15 minutes or another 45 minutes? So just letting them know and giving them a broad expectation of what they can look forward to will definitely keep people engaged. Don't forget to introduce yourself, even if a lot of people know you. There's definitely going to be people out there that don't know you or might not know certain things about you that make your position within the company or in relation to the product that you're talking about a little bit more connected to their reasons for liking it as well.
It really levels the playing field. It's just kind of making sure that everyone who's on the call has the same information, the same context, and kind of is starting off feeling comfortable and embraced and like they're part of the crew, rather than kind of assuming that people know things or things of that nature. Because the more comfortable you can make people, the more likely they are to open up and engage and interact, and that's what we want.
Another note at that juncture in the day or in the meeting, if you have a number of people that are joined, keep an eye on the little indicators on either side of the gallery view that let you know that there are people on the next screen over. Because you can have multiple screens of people's faces, and
it's kind of easy to forget about them.
Yeah, and making them feel welcome as well, instead of just the people that have populated the main screen. The next step we recommend is laying down some house rules.
And we have a document that we'll be sharing a link to, and so we'll share that link, and it has our house rules.
Yeah,
and
you can use them.
Yeah, if you rip and reapply. It also has our helpful tech tips and trips for your participants. So different than these tech tips and trips.
Right. But things in the tech tips are like, introducing people to the platform of Zoom, all the things that you'll learn as you're going through it yourself, how to raise your hand, where the chat bar is, how to mute yourself, how to unmute yourself. And those are helpful so that people feel comfortable engaging. If they don't know how to unmute themselves, then they're not going to, and then you're not going to hear from them.
Yeah, and we'll definitely share ours here so you can rip and reapply and just use them and save you some time and energy. I do think, the raising the hand thing, I just want to emphasize, because I think as a host, it's really helpful to teach people how to raise their hand, because it gives a little blue icon and it kind of like catches your attention, and it just, sometimes the chat gets a little crazy and it's hard to keep up, especially if you're hosting it by yourself. And so using that raise your hand is a really good way for you to like visually be like, oh, someone wants to say something, and let them in. And so that's really important. And then also encouraging people to chat with the whole group, but also chat directly and privately. And that's also a good note we didn't mention earlier, that if you're hosting with someone else who's not with you, you can chat with them directly, just one-on-one behind the scenes. So if you need them to do something, or someone's,
like if they forgot to make you a host.
He's never going to let me live that down. Yeah, so we'll share our standard house rules and tech tips and tricks. Again, in the spirit of just saving you guys time and energy and helping you get up and running with all this virtual new world as quickly as possible.
Yeah. And then while you're going through the presentation and all the things you have to talk about, it's helpful to maybe put a clock somewhere nearby so you can glance at that every once in a while, so you don't realize that, you're 45 minutes in and you're only on the second topic.
That's never happened to us.
I guess that's the main points
we wanted to make. Yeah, I mean, and other than that, it's just try to have fun, I mean, it's, the first one is stressful sometimes, but depending on your personality. I love being on camera, so I enjoy it. But it can be stressful. And so you also can just like get a bunch of your friends together and do a practice one. But again, practice it intentionally. So introduce yourself, talk about the evening, do all of these things, and just, they're your friends. They'll sit through it. They'll do it with you. So that can be helpful too sometimes, to just do it yourself.
And by practicing and kind of having yourself set up in this way, or however, it fits where your space is, and, going through these things ahead of time will primarily allow you to be attentive to the immersion and the connectivity that you're able to provide. And anytime that you recognize something that you enjoy, call attention to it. Something as simple as having people all hold up their bottle of whatever they're drinking in front of the camera, and everybody has it in gallery view. Everybody can see what everybody else is drinking. And I don't know, that was a fun thing the first time we figured out how fun that was. And the people that didn't have it in gallery view, again, just gallery view alone, as Suzanne was sharing earlier, was really fun. And then seeing all these different cool products that they were enjoying.
And it's also like getting people out of the scrolling the phone, kind of watching, the passive engagement, right? Like that's what we're trying to help you guys achieve, is getting people who are actively engaged. And so doing things that moves their body a little bit. So even with wine, we were talking about, getting everyone to like, okay, everyone pick up your glass and let's all swirl it at the same time. Let's swirl it in front of the camera, right? Like, and doing that, it just visually makes it fun. And it makes them feel like they're part of the experience instead of just viewing the experience. And so it's those types of things that, you really want to think about.
Conversation, connection, and the more you are attentive to the things that we've laid out here, the more you'll be able to have your attention be on those components of these experiences.
Exactly, which is why we're doing this, is to help all of you be virtual happy hour and virtual tasting experience rock stars, and then hopefully join us for some of our virtual tasting experiences too, to broaden your reach and have a different experience, and invite your audience to those too. So yeah, we hope this was helpful. When we've shared these tips and tricks with some other craft makers in kind of smaller forums as guest speakers, that everyone has seemed like it was really helpful. So we decided we wanted to just share it more broadly and kind of record this to help all of you. So we'll leave it at that. And we can't wait to see your virtual tasting experiences and virtual happy hours come to life. We would love to be invited to them. So if you start hosting them, make sure to tag us at the Crafty Cask and, follow us on Instagram and Facebook and all that, so we know about them, and attend some of ours too. It's a great learning forum. When we were first getting started doing this, we attended other people's virtual events to see.
We'd love to have you.
Yeah, so join us, be featured with us, and do great things on your own.
Good luck.
Bye, everyone.